So here's my list of allegations. In this video, we're going to focus on item number 1, the privacy violation. In this video, we're going to give you the background. I grew up in the mountains of western North Carolina, and I was a troubled youth. At about age 15, I had started to drink alcohol recreationally. And then on into ages 16, 17, and 18, this progressed into using marijuana and using hallucinogenic drugs. These hallucinogenic drugs caused me some problems. I had a mental breakdown at age 18, and I had to be hospitalized at a psychiatric hospital called Broughton Hospital in Morganton, North Carolina. What the people at the hospital told me is that for some percentage of the people who use these drugs, these hallucinogenic drugs, you will develop an ongoing mental illness as a result of using those drugs. I'm there for 72 days, and I get out, and that was the beginning of my hell, because this hospital that I went to, it's a hospital, it's a place for people who need help, but that's not how it was perceived by the locals in the mountains. To them, it was this place where it's like there's people chained to the wall. You got to stay to the right because Hannibal Lecter's on the left, and all kinds of horrible rumors went around about me, about why I was at this hospital, and because of my stay at this hospital and all these rumors and my mental illness, I was treated as a stigmatized person when I lived in the North Carolina mountains as a young man. And this is incredibly painful. As anybody who's ever been stigmatized will tell you, that you go back in history, so you go back to the 1980s, gay men, or in our current time period, transgender people are stigmatized. You will find in these stigmatized groups a rate of suicide attempts, of suicide completion. You'll find the rates to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that of the population, and this is over because of the incredible pain this stigmatization causes. And so at age 26, I go back to college. I graduate at age 30, and I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina to escape the stigmatized hell that I'd had in the mountains. I moved in the summer of 2011. In January 2012, I get a job working for Bank of America. I worked for Bank of America for 18 months. I'm laid off. I get a job at Wells Fargo, working in Wells Fargo's commercial lending space. I had been a superstar employee at Bank of America, and I quickly become a superstar employee at Wells Fargo. I was deferred. I was treated with respect, and people had a very, very high opinion of me, and they took me very, very seriously as a person. Now, this all changed following a set of events that occurs after we have a change in our senior management. We have a guy named Bill who is hired and put in a senior management role over my department. He eventually gets promoted to an even more senior management role. And Bill has no relevant skills, no relevant qualifications, no relevant education, no relevant anything. In our department, anywhere from 5 to 15% of entry-level employees had a master's degree in accounting. He has no college whatsoever, never taken an accounting class, cannot open the software that we use to do our work. But he's given a senior role, and he starts to run the department to the ground, and to, in particular, make my life hell. Now, in my role, in the department that I worked, my immediate customer was a Wells Fargo commercial lending office. So each employee in my department would be assigned a set of Wells Fargo commercial lending offices that we would do work for. And I had the offices that had the hardest work in all the bank. And what happens is I'm always on the phone, and I'm always on the IM application, talking to my offices about the companies they lend to, their balance sheet, their income statements, all this stuff that I'm talking about in my offices. And as I'm going about this day-to-day workflow of talking to my offices, I cannot help but vent and tell them what a shit show this department is, how it's putting me under horrible, traumatic stress, how it's being ran to the ground, how the QA people are driving me insane because they don't know what they're doing. And this obviously, all of this that I'm telling my officers obviously reflects very, very badly on the department, and it's an issue for Bill. Now, Bill doesn't know how to handle the situation because he can't talk to me directly because I'm an expert at my job. And he knows if he says something to me, I'm just going to go straight to my offices and tell him what he said. And so he handles the situation by starting to use my friend at work named Jenny to get information about me. Jenny had moved over to credit analysis, the department I worked for. She had moved over to that department from another department in 2016, around the same time that Bill gets on the scene. And I was Jenny's mentor, and Jenny sat over there near where Bill sat. And Bill would overhear me training her, and this is what gives him the idea to use Jenny, because I'm Jenny's friend, to use her to indirectly handle the situation with me. And it became clear to me, as time went on, that I was a frequent source of conversation between Bill and Jenny. Now this gets amped up when Bill decides that he needs to get Jenny to quote-unquote look into my past. So he tells Jenny to do this. She cons me out of a link to my Facebook profile so that she can go and contact this girl named Abby who had liked my cover photo. And Jenny is told all these rumors and all this stuff that went around about me in the mountains. And instantly, my workplace becomes hell. Okay? I am treated, and it's instantaneous, that I've started to be treated like the stigmatized person that I was treated as when I lived in the mountains. And the thing about the stigmatization, the behaviors that are directed at you when you're stigmatized, are subtle behaviors for the most part. Not most of them aren't that blatant. They're meant to subtly show you that you don't matter and subtly disregard you and disrespect you and things like this. But when you've lived through it for 10 years like I have, it's about as subtle as a bomb siren going off. And so instantly when my workplace becomes hell, I know that something has happened. I know that somebody's talked to these people, and some people connected to the mountains where I was from. And I don't know that Jenny did it. I don't know that Wells Fargo's behind it. I think my coworker and friend named Toonie had contacted someone because I had told Toonie that there are people on my Facebook that hate me. And she looked confused and she said, "I can look you up, right?" That was in a conversation that Toonie and I had around the same time that Jenny cons me out of a link to my Facebook. It was just a few days before, as I recall. And Toonie was one of the first I noticed that had her attitude changed towards me. And so this destroys me. And me and Jenny are friends. And so as it becomes clear to me what's happened, I start to be traumatized. And I call Jenny, and I'm absolutely wailing and screaming in tears. Okay, Jenny had never ever seen me like this before. And I hadn't been like this in a very, very long time. Probably the first time I was like that in 10 years. And it's the kind of thing, I was in such distress that it would cause you to fear for someone's safety. Now, Jenny's very comforting to me through this call as we're talking, and she seems very concerned. Now, at the end of the call, I asked Jenny, I said, "Will you please talk to Toonie and ask her who she talked to, and and what she heard, what she was told, and let's talk, have her talk to me about this." And Jenny very strangely says, "I don't want to save any. I can't talk to her because I don't want to save people anymore." Now, this is very bizarre. Toonie is Jenny's mutual friend. I'm friends with Toonie. Toonie's friends with Jenny. I'm friends with Jenny. We're all good friends. With me, this devastated and destroyed and upset, there is no reason that Jenny wouldn't go and talk to Toonie. And so instantly, from that moment on, I know that Jenny knows more about this than Jenny is letting on. Now, I'm so traumatized at this point when I'm calling her and she says this. When she says that she don't want to talk to her, she don't want to save people anymore, so she's not going to talk to her about it. I just say okay and I accept what Jenny says and hang up. I'm too destroyed to fight back, but I instantly, again, from that point on, I know that Jenny knows more about this than she's admitting. So what happens is me and Jenny argue about this on and off for almost a year and a half before Wells Fargo initiates its crime spree in April of 19. So this privacy violation occurred in December of 17, and it was in April of 19 that Wells Fargo initiated the crime spree. But what happens is me and Jenny are best friends. We mutually consider one another best friends as time goes on. And I irresistibly bring up this topic about what happened in December of 17, between November 30th and the first week of December 17. That was when this privacy violation occurred. Jenny conned me out of a link to my Facebook profile on November 30th. And what happens is Jenny gets very angry every time I bring this up. She's furiously mad. She hurls verbal abuse at me. She gaslights me. She tells me not to bring it up again. And we fight about this, and each time I drop it. But over time, it becomes clear that Jenny has terrible emotions attached to this topic. And as in February of 19, they were arguing about this, and Jenny's facade breaks, and she kind of has a Freudian slip. We're arguing about this, and Jenny says, "Okay, well, I talked to her, and she said you'd been to a mental institution. Is that what you wanted to hear?" Now, this isn't, Jenny's not admitting it here. This is her way of denying it. But here, Jenny has given away what has occurred. This entire time that we've been fighting, from December 17 all the way up into February 19 at that point, I had said that Toonie had talked to someone. Toonie, and again, the girl they talked to, I know for a fact, was a girl named Abby. And I'd never, ever, ever, not once said anything about Jenny talking to Abby. So here, this idea that Jenny's talked to Abby is entirely Jenny's idea, and that gives me an aha. This is why Jenny has terrible emotions attached to this. This is why she won't talk about it. And that's a development as I figure out what has happened. That's my first realization, is that Jenny was the one who talked to Abby, or she was among the ones. So it may have been that Jenny and Toonie were put up to talking to this girl. And so at that point, I know that Jenny was involved. And I try again this whole time as this is happening. I've told Jenny repeatedly, just tell me what happened. Let's have a conversation. Just tell me the truth, and it'll all be forgiven. I ask consequence-free repeatedly. Give repeated consequence-free offers to settle this, just to be told the truth and have a conversation about what happened. And each time, Jenny responds with being angry and gaslighting and lying, denying it, and all of this other stuff, which what she eventually told me, way ahead, it was around August of 2019, that this situation had escalated to the point that Jenny said she could no longer be my friend over this situation. That was too hard on her. Jenny told me that what she does is I call her about this, and she yells at me on the phone. And then she goes and cries herself to sleep. So what I know up to this point in the narrative, I'd left off, we were at February of 2019, is that already in December of 2017, I figured out that somebody at work has contacted somebody that's connected to me in the mountains. She contacted a girl named Abby, who was on my public Facebook page, and was told a bunch of these rumors and stuff that goes around about me in the mountains, and a bunch of other stuff that I had to speculate as to what was said. But whatever it was, my workplace instantly becomes hell. It becomes the same hell that I recognized from when I left the mountains. And then in February of 19, Jenny's facade cracks. She has a Freudian slip where Jenny reveals that Jenny was either the one that contacted Abby. It was either Jenny by herself or Jenny and Toonie, but Jenny was involved. And in this video, we're going to get in some of the proof that I have that Jenny did this. And also, we'll get into some of my reasoning as to why it's obvious that Wells Fargo was behind it. So I have this privacy violation zip file. This is included in my evidence package. If you've got my PDF with the evidence packets or a link to my evidence packets, this privacy violation zip file is there. You can download it. Let's go to Extract All. Backspace that. And so here we have the privacy violation folder. And now here, the first thing to note is these files that start with a number. The first 2 digits are the evidence ID. So this is evidence ID 1, evidence ID 2, evidence ID 3, etc. And that's a consistent theme that will be throughout these videos and throughout my evidence packets. When you see that it starts with 2 numbers, that means that's an evidence ID, and you can refer, if you want to refer to Courtney Chet Enhanced Redacted, you could say, I'm looking at evidence ID 8, or I'm looking at evidence ID 2, and we can refer, and whoever gets in a back and forth about this can refer to these evidences using the ID as a shorthand. Now here, what I've got here, on evidence ID 8, this is my chat with my manager, last manager at Wells Fargo, named Courtney. Now, I'd left Wells Fargo in June of 18, but I would still message Courtney now and then. And this occurs, this chat, the first messages that you'll see here, this occurs around the same time that Wells Fargo initiates its crime spree. So on April 21st, 2019, Wells Fargo initiates its crime spree, and Courtney and I are talking, and you'll see here that I disappear for 3 days, and I'm back on the 24th. So you can see it's all these, just look here, see April 21st. You'll see here we have a chat. I disappear, and then here we're back. On April 24th, I come back, and this is after this fraudulent civil commitment process where I was hospitalized for a couple of days. I'm back, which at this point in time, as I'm talking to Courtney, I don't know that Wells Fargo is behind the fraudulent civil commitment process. I don't know that Wells Fargo is behind the privacy violation, but here in this chat, I'll show you, Courtney gives it away. She eventually admits to what occurs. So here on message 1570, you'll see that Courtney admits to it. Courtney says, I wouldn't worry about Abby or that a-hole from your past. Obviously, Jenny still cares about you and likely meant no harm in inquiring about your past. So here, this is on May 11th. Looks like at about 8:30 at night. She admits it. She admits it a second time on May 11th. And now it looks like we're looking at 11 o'clock p.m. I don't think Jenny meant any harm by reaching out to that girl. I'm sure she feels horrible for causing you pain. So there we have Courtney admitting to this. She admits to it twice. Actually, I'm going to Control-Z that and get that highlight back. See if I got this back here. Okay, yeah, so she admits to it twice. But here's what else to notice. She denies it repeatedly, over and over again. And I've got some bookmarked here. Okay. Okay, so here we are on May 8th. She's denying it on message 1358. I didn't know that you'd been hospitalized until you told me. I knew nothing of your past until you shared it with me. Message 1375. I can assure you that no one ever spoke anything about your past. Okay, message 1431. Okay, and so here, she denies it on message 1358 on May 8th. Message 1375 on May 8th again, she denies it. Message 1431 again on May 8th, she denies it. Then in message 1570 on May 11th, she admits to it. May 11th, she admits to it a second time. Then on message 2841, on May 28th, she denies it again. Okay, so she goes from denying it repeatedly to admitting it twice to denying it again. So we have to ask ourselves some questions here. The first question is, why is she admitting it? Well, the answer there is obvious. She's admitting to it because it happened. Okay, given that it happened, why is she denying it? Well, the obvious answer there is that it's a liability for Wells Fargo and a liability for her. Okay, in other words, given that it obviously happened, she's just said that it happened. If it was not a liability for Wells Fargo, it wasn't a liability for her as a Wells Fargo manager, there would be no point in just not admitting to it the whole time, and she would be consistent. Now, let me show you something else. See what happens when I Control F this and search for your past. Okay, that's got it there. I think we're done. Okay, now I want you to notice what happens when I Control F this from the beginning with the words "my past." Okay, and you'll see that there are no matches. Okay, that Courtney, as you just saw, in all these messages, she repeatedly frames this in terms of my past. She says she doesn't know anything about my past. Nobody ever told her anything about my past. Nobody ever spread rumors about my past. She knows nothing about my past except what I've told her. She didn't know that I was in the hospital in the past until I told her. Jenny meant no harm in inquiring about your past. I don't want you to worry about your past. It's your past, your past, your past. Now here's the thing. When I'm talking to her, not knowing anything about my past is a response to a concern that I've never had. Okay? In talking to this to Courtney, you can read this chat, it's in my evidence package. What I tell her is that I was hospitalized when I was 18, and that there are a bunch of rumors that went around about me concerning this, and people use this as a social tactic to cripple me in life and to compete with me with girls and stuff like this, and that Jenny has contacted someone and heard some of this stuff and spread it to my workplace. Okay, that's the concern I had. It says not a damn thing. I don't say a damn thing about, hey, Courtney, I'm concerned that somebody's inquired about my past. I'm concerned somebody's collected information from my past. I'm concerned somebody's looked into my past. Okay, I never ever framed this this way. But Courtney repeatedly frames it this way, and also in my conversations with Jenny, Jenny repeatedly does the same thing. I tell her that somebody was contacted from the mountains, that they were told a bunch of disparaging stuff about me, and it made it in my workplace, and Jenny responds with, I don't know anything about your past except what you've told me, repeatedly. Okay, so it's your past, your past, your past, your past, your past, from everybody except me. Okay, this notion that there's something wrong, there's something going on, that somebody looked into my past, this is entirely Courtney's. Okay, I never bring this up at all. I never frame this in those terms at all. She has no reason to think that unless it is a product of her own mind. And what she's doing here is she's given away what happened, And of course, she really gives it away when she says that Jenny meant no harm in inquiring about my past. It gets no more explicit than that. Now, this raises some questions. Again, this already points to Wells Fargo because she denies it. Why does she deny it? Given that it happened, why is it that she repeatedly denies it? Obviously, it's a liability for Wells Fargo. Then we've got to figure, who would want to know about my past? Who would have a desire to look into my past? And why would Courtney, as a Wells Fargo manager, know exactly what had happened? Okay. Now I want to go to a section of my complaint, complaints into the authorities, and I want to read this. This is the context of this is I'm talking about Bill's mismanagement of WLS and what unfolds. I said the unbearable stress and the hell created by the mismanagement of WLS was on my mind constantly. WLS is the segment of the bank that I work for. It was more than I could deal with. This has some side effects as I'm going about my typical workflow with my offices. My offices and I had a different way of doing things. Part of this different way of doing things was that we were constantly communicating. We were constantly on the phone discussing customers, sometimes for up to 60 to 100 minutes at a time. We were also on link communicating through IMs very frequently. This constant communication as I'm under traumatic stress creates an irresistible opportunity for me to vent. I vent about the unbelievable stress caused by the mismanagement of WLS. I would sometimes tell my office what a joke WLS was becoming. I also told them of the extreme stress the QA staff would sometimes cause me. Relative to me and also relative to my offices, our QA staff were quite far behind the curve on some of the subject matter of my work. One day after a meeting, I send Jenny an IM saying, "Bill hates me." She replies, "He doesn't hate you. It just bothers him how you throw the department under the bus to your offices and how you badmouth QA to them." I ask her, "Did he say this to you?" She replies, "No, I'm just speculating." Now, here's something you got to understand about Jenny. This poor Jenny, I very sadly come to realize that Jenny has some kind of deficit. And one of the ways that this deficit will express itself is Jenny will tell you stuff that she's heard from others or that she's discussed with others, and she will attribute it to her own private thoughts or speculations, or her own insights or whatever. Okay, so here I tell her Bill hates me. She says he doesn't hate you. It just bothers him how you throw the department under the bus and how you badmouth QA to her. I ask her, "Did he say this to you?" She replies, "No, I'm just speculating." Okay, this is bullshit. This sentiment right here, this obviously comes directly from Bill. Jenny has no way of knowing that I throw the department under the bus and I badmouth QA because Jenny sits about 40 or 50 feet away from me. Her cubicle is a good 40, 50 feet away from my desk. She can't hear me on the phone. She can't hear me when I'm typing silently in the IM window. But you better believe this gets back to Bill and he hears this. Okay? And so here, this is what I call this when Jenny does this. I call it a plagiarized private thought. And so here Jenny's had another plagiarized private thought. Then I continue. Okay, and here I follow this. I say I'm clearly a frequent subject of conversation between Jenny and Bill. Immediately, I pick up paragraph 160. Immediately following this IM exchange between Jenny and I, Bill calls all the credit analysts over for a sudden and unplanned trip to the ice cream shop. He says the ice cream was on him. We were then told to go home early and that we would still be paid for a full day's work. The timing makes what has occurred obvious. I tell Jenny that Bill hates me. She speculates as to why that's not true, and she, quote, speculates as to what Bill's grievances are. After I respond to her, Bill makes this goodwill gesture of giving us ice cream. He's trying to cure this situation he has no clue how to handle. Jenny doesn't hear the grievances I tell my offices, but Bill surely does. My offices wonder what the hell is going on at this place. Okay, so after I have this chat with Courtney, so at this point in this chat that occurs in April and May, very obviously Jenny did this. I already knew it beforehand, but here we have confirmation where Courtney's admitting it. I have strong reason to believe that Wells Fargo is behind it. Otherwise, why would she deny it? And then in my mind, I make the connection to what had occurred in this occasion that I just described, that I just read to you from my complaint. And this puts the bullseye right on Bill as the primary suspect to who would have Jenny, quote unquote, inquiring about my past. All right, I want to talk about the significance of what we've figured out thus far. So thus far, we have figured out that Jenny inquired about my past. That it seems to be very, very strongly, we have very strong reason to believe that Wells Fargo was behind it, specifically Bill, the senior manager that I couldn't get along with. And this is significant because me and Jenny at this point, that me and Courtney are talking on April 21st through the end of May that we're talking, me and Jenny have been arguing about this for a year and a half. And Jenny has repeatedly lied to me, said it didn't occur, gets all mad, yells at me, verbally abuses me, gaslights me, and all of this stuff. So here we have solid evidence that Jenny's been lying, just the way that I know she has been the whole time. Then, what's more significant is that you notice in this chat, I showed you how I'm there on April 21st, I'm talking to Courtney, then I disappear until April 24th. Well, what happens there is I disappear on April 21st because an officer of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police comes to my apartment and puts me in handcuffs and takes me to a hospital to be forcibly hospitalized. Jenny filed a false pretense civil commitment petition based on my claim that this privacy violation occurred. She claimed that I had a quote-unquote paranoid delusion. Okay, and so this fact here adds to the evidence that the whole process, which we'll get into in later videos, that whole process was fraud. So you want to make a mental note of that for the subsequent videos, that this privacy violation did occur. And of course, as we get into these subsequent videos, I'll show you Wells Fargo is very, very clearly behind all of that as well. And lastly, for this video, I'm going to show you something here. Courtney chat. I say we can all sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, and this is on May 15th, it looks like. We can all sign it. So I offer to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And this is a continuation of something that I've done the whole time that I'm arguing about this with Jenny. I'm offering consequence-free. I discussed this in my complaint in paragraph 4. All I wanted to do was talk about what happened. I attempted repeatedly and in futility to have an honest conversation about this invasion of privacy. I did so for over 1.5 years following the first week of December 2017, the approximate time that the invasion of privacy occurred. I offered to do so under terms of being completely forgiven, no consequence, and similar terms. At one point, I offered to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I didn't know for a very long time that Wells Fargo was behind what had occurred. Okay, so at this time in May, they've massacred me with crime by this time. This fraudulent civil commitment petition has already taken place, this whole process. I didn't realize at this point that Wells Fargo was behind that, but I knew that they were behind. I strongly suspected they were behind the privacy violation at this point, but I offered to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And for a year and a half, 50 times I've offered Jenny, just tell me what happened. It'll all be forgiven. I need to have a conversation. I haven't gotten completely into the details. There's a lot to this backstory with the mountains. I left a whole hell of a lot behind there that I didn't need to bring to Charlotte. And so this makes them especially despicable. Okay, in my mind, the fact that I offer them consequence-free just to have a conversation, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times, I offer to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they massacred me with crime. So at this point in May 15, 2019, they've already massacred me with crime here. And subsequent to this, after I offered to sign this non-disclosure agreement, they massacred me with more crime. And at one point, and you can also note that at this time this conversation is taking place, I am extremely ill. Okay, I am profoundly disabled with very, very, very severe post-traumatic stress disorder, and I am suffering like hell. Okay, and if you go through this whole chat and read it, you'll see. You'll be able to see my suffering. It's horrific. what I was going through. And I was breaking down into horrible tears, melting down into tears 3 times a day. Okay, crying. Okay, does the fact that I'm crying 3 times a day stop these people from committing more crimes against me? Hell no. As you'll see, the massacre just continues on. In the next video, I'm going to go over the contents of this evidence package with this privacy violation zip file that you unzip, and that'll be a transition as we get into the scam involving the crisis counselors. Now I'll go over the contents of this privacy violation zip file when you unzip this folder. Evidence ID 1, 2, and 3. These are all recorded phone calls with Jenny. This down here, this Jenny, this is a phone call as well. It doesn't have an ID. This call on February 22nd at 7:44 p.m. With this evidence ID 1 and this one right here, there's not a whole lot of value in there. You can listen. You'll see that I offer Jenny no consequence offer. One of these offers that I tell you about that offer Jenny for no consequence. It'll all be forgiven. Just tell me what happened. Let's have a conversation. This whole thing. I offer that in these calls. Another thing is that Jenny is very clearly lying. She has a bunch of Freudian slips as she's talking about this, and she's got this angry, gaslighting demeanor. And this is a Jenny in this evidence ID 1 in this call right here in this one. This is what I call gaslighting, bullshitting Jenny. That's one mode that Jenny goes into, is gaslighting, bullshitting Jenny mode. Now in evidence ID 2, this about Jenny call PDF, that's about evidence ID 2. And this is a call that I had with Jenny, and I wanted me and Jenny to have a call about this privacy violation and record me and her talking about it so that I could play it to my doctor. Okay, because for a year and a half, Jenny's been telling me that I think this occurred because I'm paranoid, and I think that's not very true. I think that Jenny's full of shit and her explanations make no sense. And so I want to record this call, and then I can play it to my doctor and have my doctor opine on whether or not I sound like I'm paranoid or whether I sound like my reasoning is intact. Now here in this call, Jenny thinks my doctor's going to listen to this, and so this is formal. Somebody important is going to hear this, Jenny. That's another mode of operation she goes into, and you'll see the contrast between gaslighting, bullshitting Jenny. And when you listen to this call, you'll be able to see very, very clearly Jenny's lying. Her explanations make no sense. She says all kinds of nonsense. And at the very end, I reference a text in this evidence ID 7, this text right here. I reference a text at the end of the call, and that evidence ID 7 is the text that I reference. Now this evidence ID 2, this call is about 45 minutes. There's a substantial investment of time in listening to this. Actually, sorry, it's 50 minutes. There's a substantial investment of time in listening to this. And I would not listen to this as part of the privacy violation evidence package. Although you will you'll see that there's more evidence for this privacy violation in here. Just the way that Jenny's the stuff that Jenny says is implausible. But this is also much more relevant to the mobile crisis scam that we're going to get into in the next set of videos. So I would save that for then. And then this evidence ID 3, you want to listen to this after you've listened to evidence ID 2. This is, again, I'm calling Jenny and telling her that my doctor's going to hear this. I want to play it to my doctor. And you can see how her story changes from what she says on evidence ID 2. A lot of the stuff she says on evidence ID 2 is nonsense, and she's correcting herself on evidence ID 3. And as we're making this evidence ID 3 call, she is under the belief that I've deleted this call already, which I did delete it off of my phone recording app, but I had another copy saved that I had. And that's when I tell her that I deleted it off my phone recording app, she thinks it's gone, and so she doesn't know she's getting caught in a lie here. Another thing to notice is that in evidence ID 2, I'm asking her, when did I tell you about the time that I went to when I went to the hospital when I was 18? Okay. Now she responds truthfully there. She says it was about May of 2018 when I was on my medical leave at work. So I was in the hospital, and again, when I was 18, it was May of 18 that I told her that. Now, in this evidence ID 3, she changes her story and starts to try to suggest that it might have been December of 17 that I told her about being sent to the hospital, that I'd been to the psychiatric hospital at age 18. Now, why would she be doing this? Well, she's had a powwow with Wells Fargo, most likely, and they know the heat is on them, that they're getting caught, because I keep getting more and more suspicious. I'm figuring out more and more as time goes on. And they know that if people come around and start asking about this, be it lawyers, investigators, people like this, that they're going to find people around Wells Fargo that heard this about me, about being in the mental hospital, that they heard this around December 17. Okay, and the reason for that is because Jenny got it from Abby and told people. Okay, so this provides plausible deniability if Jenny can backtrack and say, no, you told me in December 17, which I absolutely did not. I told her in May of 18, like she said in this evidence ID 2. But that gives them plausible deniability. They can try to make a claim that the information came from me instead of Jenny inquiring about my past. And then there's some details in here in this evidence ID 3 that this crisis counselor that's involved in this next scam that we're going to get into in the next videos, I have reason to believe that that's Jenny's personal friend. I talk about that. The police officer that processed this petition, which is a very serious crime there. This is her neighbor. Okay, is who that is. Her neighbor, who's a police officer, and I asked her about all of that stuff. But again, I wouldn't listen to that call, evidence ID 3, until I've listened to evidence ID 2. And I'll suggest that you listen to those as part of the next videos that we get into about this mobile crisis scam. This Courtney Chack excerpt you can ignore. This is just I've got a quick snapshot here of the times where Courtney admits it. That's just meant to be a quick way to validate the evidence, but you don't need it if you saw the other videos. This About Jenny Colligan ties to evidence ID 2. And that's it for this zip file. In the next videos, we're going to get into the mobile crisis scam.